I drove 2 hours to surprise my wife and found the truth that destroyed my life for 15 years. Claire had been my entire world. Not just my wife, not just my partner. She was the person who knew every version of me. The ambitious young man who worked 80-hour weeks trying to build a company. The exhausted husband who sometimes fell asleep on the couch after long days. The dreamer who still believed that love could survive anything. Or at least, that's what I thought. We met during our sophomore year at college. I still remember the exact moment. She was sitting outside the campus library beneath a large oak tree. Everyone around her seemed rushed, stressed, distracted, but Claire looked calm, beautiful, certain, like she knew exactly where she was going in life. I spent nearly 20 minutes building enough courage to walk over and introduce myself. When I finally did, she smiled. One smile. That was all it took. From that day forward, we were inseparable. We studied together, worked together, dreamed together. When graduation came, we moved into a tiny apartment with peeling paint and furniture we bought from thrift stores. We had almost no money. But somehow those were some of the happiest years of my life, because every night ended the same way. Her head on my shoulder, her hand in mine. The certainty that no matter what happened tomorrow, we would face it together. 5 years later, I proposed. 10 years later, we were living in a beautiful house in Greenwich. Life wasn't perfect. No marriage ever is, but it was ours, and I loved it. I loved her. At least I thought I still knew who she was. The changes happened slowly, so slowly that I barely noticed them. More business trips. More late nights. More weekends spent answering emails. Claire had climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected. By 42, she was a senior vice president at one of Manhattan's largest firms. I was proud of her. God, I was proud of her. Whenever people talked about successful women, I thought about Claire. Whenever someone asked how she managed to accomplish so much, I'd smile and tell them the truth. Because she's smarter than everyone else. And she usually was, but success came with sacrifices. Or at least that's what I told myself. When she missed dinner because of work, when she canceled vacations, when she spent more time staring at her phone than talking to me, I explained it away. That's what people do when they're in love. They create excuses. They defend the people who hurt them, because accepting the truth feels worse. The first business trip happened 14 months earlier. Boston, 2 days, then another one, then another. Soon they became routine. Every few months Claire would pack 2 bags, kiss me goodbye, and disappear for several days. Conferences, leadership retreats, corporate seminars, client events, there was always a reason. Always an explanation, and because I trusted her completely, I never questioned any of it. Looking back now, that might have been my biggest mistake. Trust isn't dangerous. Blind trust is. The trip that changed everything started on a Sunday morning. Claire stood by the front door wearing a navy blazer and carrying her work tote. She looked beautiful. She always did. She leaned forward and kissed me quickly. 3-day seminar upstate, she said. I'll be back Wednesday night. I smiled. Have fun, she laughed. Trust me, corporate seminars aren't fun. Then she walked out the door, and I watched her leave exactly the same way I'd watched her leave dozens of times before, without suspicion, without doubt. Without fear. I had no idea my life was about to change. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. Rain tapped softly against the windows of my home office. I was reviewing contracts for a client when my phone rang. Unknown Manhattan number. Normally, I would have ignored it. Something made me answer. Hello, a young woman spoke. Mr. Harwick, yes. My name is Jenna. I'm Claire's assistant. Immediately, I sat up straighter. Claire's assistant never called me, never. Is everything okay? She hesitated. I hope so. That wasn't the answer I expected. I felt a strange knot form in my stomach. I have several documents that require Claire's signature immediately, she continued. I've been trying to reach her all morning, I nodded. She's probably in a seminar session. Silence, a strange silence, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I frowned. Hello, the woman finally spoke. Mr. Harwick. Her voice sounded cautious now, almost nervous. Yes, We don't have any company seminars scheduled this week. My heart skipped a beat. I laughed awkwardly. There must be some misunderstanding. Another pause, then came the sentence that shattered everything. Claire requested personal vacation days. The room went silent. The rain outside seemed louder. Every sound suddenly felt distant, like I was underwater. What? The word barely left my mouth. I thought you should know, Jenna said quietly. I assumed she was with family or handling something personal. I couldn't speak. My brain refused to process what I had just heard, because there were only two possibilities. Either her assistant was wrong, or Claire had lied to me, not a small lie, not a misunderstanding, a deliberate lie, the kind that requires planning, the kind that requires intention. The kind that destroys trust. I forced myself to remain calm. Thank you for calling. Of course. The call ended. I stared at my phone. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, nothing moved. Nothing made sense. The woman I trusted more than anyone in the world had apparently lied about where she was. And deep down, a terrifying feeling had already started growing inside me. Because people don't usually lie about where they're going, unless they don't want you to know who they're with. The moment I hung up the phone, something inside me changed. Not completely. Not yet. But a crack had appeared. A crack in the trust I had spent 15 years building. I sat motionless in my office, staring at the rain running down the window. Maybe Jenna was mistaken. Maybe there really was a company event. Maybe Claire forgot to tell her assistant. Maybe there was some perfectly reasonable explanation. I desperately wanted one. Because the alternative was terrifying. For 15 years, Claire had been the person I trusted most in the world. The idea that she could lie to me felt impossible. Yet the facts didn't fit. And facts don't care about feelings. I picked up my phone and called her. The call rang 4 times. Voicemail. I tried again, straight to voicemail. A third time, same result. I told myself not to panic. She might be busy. She might be in a meeting. She might simply not hear the phone. But every excuse sounded weaker than the one before. I stood up from my desk and walked into the kitchen. The house felt unusually quiet, almost empty. For years, I'd enjoyed having the house to myself whenever Claire traveled. Now the silence felt different, heavy, uncomfortable, like the walls themselves were waiting for answers. Then I noticed her tablet. It sat exactly where she always left it. Charging beside the coffee machine. For a moment I stared at it. Part of me knew I should leave it alone, trust her, wait until she got home, ask her directly. But another part of me couldn't ignore the feeling growing inside my chest. The fear, the uncertainty, the need to know. We shared accounts, shared passwords, shared everything. There was nothing secret about looking at the tablet. At least that's what I told myself. I picked it up. My hands felt strangely cold. The screen lit up. Photos, email, news, nothing unusual. Everything looked normal. I opened the browser. The recent history appeared instantly. Most of it was exactly what I'd expected. Business articles, financial news, corporate emails, online shopping. Then I saw it. One website, repeated over and over. The same name appearing again and again throughout the last several weeks. Wildflower Farms. I frowned. I'd never heard of it before. Curious, I opened the page. A luxury resort. Nestled in the Hudson Valley. Beautiful views, private cottages, spa treatments, romantic dining, weekend getaways. The kind of place couples visited to reconnect, not the kind of place companies used for corporate seminars. My stomach tightened. I kept scrolling. Room availability, restaurant reservations. Directions, photos, more searches, more visits, again, and again, and again. The pattern was impossible to ignore. This wasn't random curiosity. Claire had been looking at this place for weeks. Maybe months. The knot in my stomach became something heavier, something darker. I set the tablet down, then immediately picked it back up. My hands were trembling now. I hated that they were trembling, because that meant part of me already believed what I was finding. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Hours passed. I tried to work. Couldn't. Tried to focus. Couldn't. Every few minutes I looked at my phone. No text. No call. Nothing. Around 3 in the afternoon, I called her again. This time she answered. Relief flooded through me. For a brief second, everything felt normal again. Hey, she said. Her voice sounded cheerful, relaxed, almost happy. Hey, sorry it's been crazy today. I listened carefully. There was background noise, music, people talking, glasses clinking. It didn't sound like a seminar, it sounded like a restaurant. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, I hesitated. Then asked the question, where exactly is this seminar? Silence, just for a second, but I noticed. Upstate, I frowned. Where upstate? Another pause. I'm honestly not sure of the exact town. My heart sank. Claire knew the exact location of every business trip she'd ever taken, every conference, every meeting, every hotel. Suddenly she couldn't remember. Really? She laughed nervously. Rick, I've got a million things going on right now. The laughter sounded forced, unnatural. I'm sorry, I said. No, it's okay. I'll call you tonight. Then she hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. The room felt colder than before, because I knew something, not everything, but enough. Claire was lying. The woman who never forgot details. The woman who could remember phone numbers from 10 years ago. The woman who planned every vacation down to the minute. Couldn't remember what town she was staying in. No, I didn't believe that. Not for a second. My pulse quickened. I opened my phone, then opened an app we rarely used, Find My. Claire and I had shared locations for years, not because we didn't trust each other, because it was convenient, a safety thing, something married couples did. The map loaded. A small blue dot appeared. I zoomed in. My breathing stopped. Gardner, New York, Wildflower Farms, the exact location from her browser history. For a moment, I simply stared. The evidence sat in front of me, cold, clear, undeniable. My wife wasn't at a seminar, she was at a luxury resort, and she had lied about it. I felt sick. Not angry, not yet, just devastated. Because every answer seemed to lead toward the same conclusion, a conclusion I desperately didn't want. I closed my eyes, memories flooded back. Our wedding, our first apartment, the vacations. The birthdays, the promises. 15 years together, 15 years. Could all of that really be ending? Could everything really be a lie? I wanted to call her again. Demand answers. Confront her immediately. But something stopped me, because if I confronted her now, she'd deny everything. She'd create another explanation, another story, another lie. And I'd still be left wondering. No, I needed the truth, the complete truth, no excuses, no misunderstandings, no doubts. I opened my eyes, looked at the map one more time, then stood up. My decision was made. I walked upstairs, packed a small overnight bag, grabbed my car keys, and headed for the front door. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Dark clouds stretched across the sky. The air felt cold, heavy, like a storm was still coming. Maybe it was. I got into my car, started the engine, and entered the destination into my GPS, Wildflower Farms, Gardner, New York. 2 hours away. 2 hours between me and the truth. As I pulled out of the driveway, I had no idea that the next few hours would destroy the life I thought I had. But somewhere deep inside, I already knew. I pulled out of the driveway at 3:47 p.m. The GPS said the trip would take 1 hour and 58 minutes, 118 minutes, 7,080 seconds. I remember because I kept looking at the clock, not because I was in a hurry, because every second felt like a countdown to the moment my entire life might fall apart. The roads leaving Greenwich were familiar. I'd driven them thousands of times, business meetings, family vacations, weekend getaways with Claire, yet that afternoon everything looked different. The world hadn't changed. I had. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. My chest felt heavy, like someone had placed a concrete block directly over my heart. Every few minutes I looked at my phone sitting in the passenger seat. Still no messages, still no calls, nothing. The silence felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I kept hoping my phone would ring, that Claire would call, laugh, explain everything, tell me there had been a misunderstanding. Maybe she planned a surprise, maybe she was meeting an old friend. Maybe there was some explanation I hadn't considered. I wanted that explanation desperately, because the truth I was imagining felt unbearable. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. Gray clouds covered the sky. The radio played quietly in the background. Then a song came on. Our song. The one that played during our first dance at our wedding. My hand immediately reached for the radio. I turned it off. The silence that followed hurt even more. Suddenly, I was 25 years old again, standing in a rented ballroom. Watching Claire walk toward me in her wedding dress, I could still see it perfectly. The way she smiled, the way her eyes sparkled, the way she squeezed my hands during our vows. She had cried. I had cried, everyone cried, because our love had felt real, not perfect. Real. I remembered promising her forever. I remembered believing it with every part of me. The memory hit so hard that my vision blurred. I blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. A grown man, 43 years old, driving alone on a highway, trying not to cry. Because somewhere inside me, I already knew. People don't lie about where they're going for no reason. And they definitely don't take personal vacation days and pretend they're work trips. The signs had been there, I just hadn't wanted to see them. The realization hurt more than anything, because it wasn't just betrayal. It was stupidity, my stupidity. The kind that comes from loving someone too much. I thought about the anniversary dinner she'd missed 6 months earlier. We'd had reservations at a restaurant we'd been visiting for over a decade. I had bought flowers, a gift, even written her a letter, then 2 hours before dinner she called. Emergency meeting. Her voice sounded rushed, apologetic. I told her not to worry, I understood. I always understood. That night I ate alone. The flowers sat untouched on the kitchen table. At the time, I felt disappointed. Now I wondered where she'd actually been. The thought made me sick. Another memory surfaced. My birthday, 3 months ago. Claire spent most of the evening staring at her phone, smiling occasionally, typing messages. I asked if everything was okay. She said work was crazy. I believed her. Of course I did, I always believed her. The highway signs flashed by, mile after mile, exit after exit, and with each passing mile more memories surfaced. Tiny moments I'd ignored, small details that suddenly seemed important, late-night texts, secret smiles, unexpected trips, unexplained absences. Looking back, the pattern seemed obvious. But hindsight is cruel. It shows you every warning sign after it's too late. The sun began slowly sinking behind the mountains. Golden light broke through the clouds. The scenery was beautiful. Normally, I would have appreciated it. Not that day. That day, everything felt colorless, empty. I thought about the first house Claire and I bought together. We couldn't afford most of the furniture. For months, we ate dinner sitting on the floor. Every night, we'd laugh and talk about the future. Children, travel, retirement, dreams. Back then, we weren't rich. We weren't successful. But we were happy, or at least I thought we were. A sharp pain hit my chest, not physical, emotional. The kind that steals your breath, because suddenly I found myself wondering something horrible. When exactly had she stopped loving me? Was it recently? A year ago, 5 years ago, had she ever stopped? Or had I simply become convenient, the safe husband, the reliable husband? The man who paid half the bills and never asked questions. The thought made my stomach turn. I wanted to reject it, but once a seed of doubt enters your mind, it grows quickly. Especially when it's fed by evidence. My phone buzzed, my heart jumped, I grabbed it instantly. A text, from Claire. Busy day, everything okay at home? I stared at the screen. Read the message 3 times. Everything okay at home? The words felt surreal. She was sitting at a luxury resort, lying about where she was, possibly with another man. And she wanted to know if everything was okay at home. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have confronted her. I could have told her what I knew. I could have demanded answers. Instead, I typed 3 simple words. Everything is fine. Then I hit send. Almost immediately, 3 dots appeared. She was typing. Good, love you. I stared at those words, love you. For years, those 2 words had meant everything to me. Comfort, trust, safety, home. Now they felt hollow, empty, like a script being read by an actor. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't type the words back. I simply put the phone down and kept driving. The closer I got to Gardner, the harder it became to breathe. Reality was approaching. The truth was no longer some distant possibility. It was waiting for me just a few miles ahead. The GPS announced another turn. My hands felt numb. My mouth was dry. I hadn't eaten all day. I wasn't hungry. Fear has a way of replacing hunger. The resort appeared sooner than I expected. A wooden sign emerged beside the road. Wildflower Farms. The name I'd seen over and over in Claire's browser history. The place she'd searched repeatedly. The place she claimed not to know. My pulse pounded in my ears. For a moment I considered turning around. Driving home, pretending none of this existed. Because once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Once you know, and there is no going back. I stopped the car near the entrance. The engine idled quietly. The sky had turned orange and gold. The resort looked beautiful, peaceful, romantic. The exact kind of place couples escaped to when they wanted to spend time together. I sat there for nearly 5 minutes. Frozen, terrified, heartbroken, praying I was wrong. Praying with everything I had left, because despite the evidence, despite the lies, despite the fear, I still loved her. And loving someone makes you hope long after hope has become unreasonable. Finally, I took a deep breath, turned off the engine, opened the door, and stepped out of the car. I had come looking for answers. I was about to find them. And nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I stood beside my car for nearly a minute. The evening air was cool. The mountains stretched across the horizon. Birds sang somewhere in the distance. Everything looked peaceful, beautiful, perfect, and somehow that made it worse. Because while nature carried on as if nothing was wrong, my entire world was hanging by a thread. I walked slowly toward the resort. Each step felt heavier than the last. My legs moved. My mind didn't. Part of me was still praying, still hoping, still searching for some explanation that would make everything okay again. Maybe she was meeting a client, maybe a friend. Maybe someone from work, maybe I had misunderstood everything. People don't want the truth when the truth hurts. They want hope, even when hope is irrational, especially then. The resort grounds were stunning. Stone pathways curved through gardens filled with flowers. Small cottages sat among the trees. Soft lights glowed along the walkways. It looked like the kind of place couples visited to celebrate anniversaries. The kind of place people fell in love, or betrayed the people who loved them. I followed a path leading toward the main restaurant. Voices drifted through the evening air. Laughter, music, the sound of glasses clinking together. I felt my pulse quicken. My hands trembled slightly. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around. Go home, forget everything. But I couldn't, I needed to know. I reached the edge of the outdoor terrace. Large wooden beams framed the open dining area. Guests sat at candlelit tables overlooking the valley below. The sunset painted everything gold. For a brief moment, I scanned the crowd. Then I saw her, and my heart stopped. Claire, my wife, the woman I'd loved for 15 years. She sat at a table near the edge of the terrace. A glass of wine rested in front of her. The fading sunlight illuminated her face. She looked happy, genuinely happy. The happiest I'd seen her in months, maybe years. That realization hurt more than anything. Because somewhere deep down, I couldn't remember the last time she'd looked that happy with me. I stood completely still, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to move. Then I saw him. A man sitting beside her. Mid-50s, tall, confident, expensive clothes. The kind of man who looked comfortable wherever he went. He leaned closer to her, said something. Claire laughed. A real laugh. Not the polite laugh she used at work functions, not the forced laugh she'd given me lately. A genuine laugh. The kind I used to hear all the time. The kind I'd fallen in love with. The sound hit me like a knife, because suddenly I realized something. He wasn't just stealing my wife. He had already stolen pieces of her I thought belonged to me. Their conversation continued. Easy. Comfortable, natural, like two people who knew each other very well. Too well. I wanted to look away. I couldn't. I hated every second of what I was seeing, yet I couldn't stop watching. Because this wasn't a movie, this wasn't a nightmare, this was my life, and my life was falling apart right in front of me. The man reached for his wine. Claire smiled at him. Then it happened. The moment I'll never forget. The moment that still visits me in my worst dreams. He placed his arm around her shoulders, casually, comfortably, naturally, like he'd done it 100 times before. And Claire leaned into him, not away, not surprised, not uncomfortable, into him as if she belonged there, as if that arm felt familiar, safe, wanted. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My chest tightened so violently I thought I might collapse. Every memory, every promise, every anniversary, every holiday, every kiss, every I love you. Every single thing shattered at once. Because there are moments in life when your heart knows the truth before your mind accepts it. This was one of them. I didn't need explanations anymore. I didn't need evidence. I didn't need excuses. I knew my wife was having an affair. The woman I trusted more than anyone else in the world was sitting 20 yards away in another man's arms. And she looked happy. That was the part that destroyed me. Not that she was there. Not that she lied. Not even that she betrayed me. It was the happiness, the ease, the comfort. The realization that while I was sitting at home believing she was working, she was building memories with someone else. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. For a moment I thought I might walk over there, confront them, demand answers, ask her why, ask him who he thought he was, ask both of them how they could do this. But then another thought appeared. What would that accomplish? Would it undo what I'd seen? Would it save my marriage? Would it erase the lies? No, it would only give them a chance to create new ones. So instead, I did something unexpected. I pulled out my phone. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. Then I took a picture, one photo, then another, Claire laughing. Claire smiling, Claire leaning into him, his arm around her shoulders. Evidence, proof, reality. The kind of reality no one could explain away. When I lowered my phone, tears finally escaped. I quickly wiped them away, not because I was embarrassed, because I was angry. Angry that I still loved her. Angry that seeing her happy with someone else hurt this much. Angry that after everything she'd done, part of me still wanted to run over there and ask her to come home. Love can be cruel. Even when someone breaks your heart, part of you keeps loving them anyway. That's the worst part. Not the betrayal, not the lies, the love that refuses to die. I stood there for several more seconds. Watching, listening, hurting, then Claire reached for his hand, and he squeezed hers. The gesture was small, simple, almost invisible, yet somehow it hurt more than everything else. Because it wasn't passion, it wasn't excitement, it was intimacy, comfort, connection. The kind of connection I thought belonged to us, the kind of connection we once had. The kind of connection I'd spent 15 years protecting, and now it belonged to someone else. I couldn't watch anymore. I turned around. Slowly, silently, my heart breaking with every step. The sunset behind me faded into darkness. The laughter disappeared. The music grew distant, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt completely alone. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember opening the door. I don't even remember starting the engine. The only thing I remember was pain, a deep, crushing pain that seemed to spread through every part of my body. For 15 years, Claire had been my home, and in less than 5 minutes, that home had collapsed. I sat in the driver's seat staring through the windshield. The resort lights glowed in the distance. People laughed, couples walked hand in hand. Life continued. Meanwhile, my entire world had just ended. My phone rested in my hand. The photos were still on the screen. Claire smiling. Claire laughing. Claire leaning into another man. Every image felt like a knife. I should have deleted them. Instead, I kept looking, because a small part of me still hoped I had misunderstood. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe there was something I hadn't seen. Maybe no, there wasn't. I knew it. My heart knew it. The evidence was sitting right there. The woman I loved was sharing her life with someone else. A tear rolled down my cheek. Then another. Then another. For the first time since my father died 12 years earlier, I cried uncontrollably. Not because I was weak, Because grief doesn't care how strong you are, and what I felt in that moment was grief. The death of a marriage, the death of trust, the death of the future I thought I had. Eventually, I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and forced myself to think. Emotion wasn't going to help me. I needed facts, truth, evidence. I opened the photos again, zoomed in on the man's face. His features became clearer. Strong jawline, gray hair, expensive watch, confident smile. He looked familiar, not familiar enough to recognize, but familiar enough to bother me. I'd seen him somewhere before, I just couldn't remember where, then a memory surfaced. A photograph, months earlier, Claire's tablet, a company event, a man standing beside her. His arm around her shoulders. At the time I hadn't thought anything of it. Now I grabbed my phone, opened the cloud account connected to our shared devices, and searched through old pictures. Hundreds of photos passed by. Birthday parties, vacations, corporate events, holiday dinners, then I found it, the picture. Claire stood in a crowded ballroom, a glass of wine in her hand. A smile on her face, and beside her, the same man. My stomach dropped. I compared the images, one from a year ago, one from tonight, same face, same smile, same man. This wasn't new. This hadn't started recently. The realization hit me hard. They knew each other long before this trip. Maybe months, maybe years. Suddenly, every business trip from the past 14 months felt suspicious. Every conference, every seminar, every retreat. Had she been seeing him the entire time? The thought made me physically sick. I opened my car door, stepped outside, and vomited into the bushes beside the parking lot. When I finished, I stood there breathing heavily, humiliated, broken. Alone, I had never felt pain like that before, not even close, because betrayal doesn't just hurt your heart, it attacks your memories. Every happy moment becomes questionable. Every beautiful memory becomes contaminated. You start wondering what was real, what was fake, whether the person you loved ever truly existed, or whether they were simply someone you imagined. After several minutes, I got back into the car. I stared at the resort one final time, then I opened my laptop. If I wanted answers, I needed a name. I uploaded one of the photos. Ran a search through professional networking databases. Nothing. I tried again, different angle, different image. Several minutes passed, then a result appeared. My pulse quickened. Everett Hale. Age 52, partner at a prestigious Manhattan law firm, corporate litigation specialist, married, 2 children, respected throughout the legal industry. I stared at his profile. Then I stared at his picture. Same man, no doubt. I had a name, but the name led to something even worse. Because when I continued reading, I discovered a detail that changed everything. Everett Hale wasn't just married. His wife was the daughter of Gerald Whitmore, the founder of the law firm, one of the most powerful attorneys in New York. A man whose name carried enormous influence. My eyebrows rose. That meant Everett had a lot to lose. His marriage wasn't just personal, it was professional. His career, his reputation, his future. Everything depended on keeping his life intact. Then another realization hit me. If Everett had so much to lose, why risk an affair, unless he believed nobody would ever find out? Unless this had been hidden successfully for a very long time. I leaned back in my seat, my heartbreak slowly giving way to something else. Clarity. For the first time all day, my emotions began settling. The tears stopped, the shock faded, the sadness remained, but beneath it another feeling emerged: determination. Because now I understood something important. Claire hadn't made a mistake, she hadn't slipped, she hadn't gotten caught in a moment of weakness. This required planning. Lies, months of deception. Maybe years. This wasn't one bad decision. It was hundreds of decisions. Every day she woke up and chose to lie. Every day she looked me in the eyes and chose deception. Every day she came home and pretended everything was normal. That realization changed something inside me. The man who had driven to the resort hoping to save his marriage was gone. The man sitting in that car wanted the truth. The complete truth. No matter how painful it might be, I started the engine. The headlights illuminated the dark road ahead. The resort disappeared behind me as I pulled away. Claire had no idea I knew. She had no idea her secret was unraveling. And she certainly had no idea that tonight was only the beginning. Because I wasn't finished, not even close. I had found the man. Now I needed to discover how deep the lies went, and something told me. The truth was going to be far worse than anything I'd imagined. I got home a little after midnight. The house was dark, silent, empty. For 15 years, coming home had always brought me comfort. That night, it felt like walking into a museum filled with memories of a life that no longer existed. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. The sound echoed through the house. Normally, Claire would have been there, maybe reading on the couch, maybe watching television, maybe asking how my day went. Instead, there was only silence. I walked into our bedroom. Her side of the bed was perfectly made. Her perfume lingered faintly in the air. The scent hit me harder than I expected. My knees almost gave out, because suddenly I wasn't thinking about the affair. I was thinking about us, the real us, the version that existed before the lies. I remembered lazy Sunday mornings, Christmas mornings, late-night conversations, road trips, anniversaries. The little things that actually make a marriage. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had been avoiding. Did she ever truly love me? The thought shattered me. Because if the answer was no, then 15 years meant nothing. But if the answer was yes, then how did we end up here? How did the woman who once cried during our wedding vows become someone capable of lying so easily? I sat on the edge of the bed, staring into darkness, searching for answers that didn't exist. Eventually, I stood up, opened my laptop, and made a decision. I needed facts, not assumptions, not emotions, facts, because emotions were drowning me. The next morning, I called a private investigator, a man based in the Hudson Valley, highly recommended, professional, discreet. When he answered, I got straight to the point. My wife is at Wildflower Farms. A brief pause. Okay, she's there with another man. Another pause, then a calm response. What exactly do you need? I looked at the photos on my screen. Claire smiling at Everett, Claire leaning into him, my heart twisted. I need the truth. The investigator was quiet for a moment, then he spoke softly. I'll see what I can find. For the next 2 days, I lived in a nightmare. Claire returned home Wednesday evening exactly as planned, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent 3 days lying to my face. I heard her car pull into the driveway. My stomach tightened instantly. The front door opened, and there she was, my wife. The woman who had broken my heart, yet somehow looked exactly the same. That's the strange thing about betrayal. The person who destroys your world still looks familiar, still sounds familiar, still smiles the same way. The monster exists only in what they've done, not in what they look like. Hey, she said. She smiled, actually smiled, as if she hadn't spent 3 days with another man. As if she hadn't lied repeatedly, as if everything was normal. Hey! I forced myself to remain calm. She walked over and kissed my cheek. The gesture made my skin crawl, not because I hated her. Because I still loved her, and that somehow hurt more. How was the seminar? I asked. The lie came effortlessly. Exhausting. Exhausting. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. Glad you're home. She smiled again, then headed upstairs, and I realized something terrifying. She wasn't struggling. She wasn't guilty. She wasn't nervous. She was comfortable lying. Comfortable deceiving me. Comfortable pretending. That realization hurt more than the affair itself, because affairs happen. People make terrible decisions, but lying every single day. That requires practice. That requires choice. That requires becoming someone else. For the next 48 hours, I waited. Every minute felt endless. Every notification made my heart jump. Every email made my pulse race. Then Friday morning, it finally arrived. An email from the investigator. Subject line, report attached. My hands started shaking immediately. Part of me didn't want to open it, because once I saw the evidence, there would be no going back. No more doubt, no more hope, no more denial, only truth. I clicked. 22 photographs appeared. Time-stamped, dated, verified, and within seconds my world shattered all over again. Photo 1. Claire and Everett checking into the resort together, not separately, together, standing side by side. Smiling, photo 2, walking through the gardens holding hands like teenagers, like newlyweds, like people in love. Photo 3, dinner, candlelight, wine, laughter, photo 4. Everett kissing her forehead. I felt physically sick. Photo 5, Claire resting her head against his shoulder. The same way she'd once rested it against mine. I stopped scrolling. Tears filled my eyes. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I simply sat there staring at the screen. Broken, completely broken, because those photos revealed something devastating. This wasn't an affair built on excitement. It wasn't secret hookups. It wasn't lust. It looked like a relationship, an actual relationship, a second life, a second love story. And suddenly I realized what hurt most. Everett hadn't stolen my wife. He had stolen the future I thought belonged to us. The memories, the affection, the attention, the love, everything. My vision blurred. I wiped away tears and forced myself to continue. The final section of the report included notes, detailed observations, estimated timeline, locations, patterns. Then I saw one sentence that nearly stopped my heart. Based on observed familiarity and behavior, investigator believes relationship has existed significantly longer than current trip. I stared at those words. Again, and again, and again. Longer. Much longer, maybe months, maybe years. Every business trip suddenly became suspicious. Every conference, every seminar, every late-night meeting, every excuse. How many times had she left this house to be with him? How many times had she kissed me goodbye before driving to another man? How many times had I stood in this exact kitchen believing her? The answer didn't matter anymore, because whether it was 10 lies or 1,000, the damage was the same. I leaned back in my chair, completely exhausted, emotionally empty. Then something unexpected happened. For the first time since this nightmare began, I stopped crying. Not because I felt better, because something inside me finally broke. The hope was gone. The denial was gone. The man desperately searching for innocent explanations was gone. Only reality remained, and reality was simple. Claire had chosen him, over and over, for a very long time. I closed the report, looked around the empty office, and whispered words I never imagined I would say. My marriage is over. The silence that followed felt permanent, because deep down, I knew it was true. 3 weeks later, Claire sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. The same table where we'd planned vacations. Celebrated promotions. Talked about our future. The same table where she'd once told me she couldn't wait to grow old with me. Now there was nothing left between us except silence. The divorce papers sat in front of her, neatly organized, waiting, just like I had been waiting for the last 3 weeks, waiting for an explanation, waiting for regret. Waiting for something that would make sense of 15 years. It never came. Claire looked tired, older somehow, not physically, emotionally, like life had finally caught up with her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows, the same sound I had heard the day her assistant called. Funny how life circles back to the beginning. Finally, Claire broke the silence. "Do you hate me?" The question surprised me, not because she asked it, because I had spent weeks asking myself the same thing. Did I hate her? I should have. Most people would. She lied, cheated, destroyed our marriage, destroyed our future, destroyed the life we'd spent 15 years building. Yet when I looked at her, I didn't see a villain. I saw the woman I had loved. The woman who once held my hand when my father died. The woman who sat beside me in hospital waiting rooms. The woman who danced barefoot in our kitchen at midnight. The woman who used to laugh until tears rolled down her cheeks. The woman who once loved me, or at least I believed she did. I shook my head slowly. "No," Claire lowered her eyes. For the first time since this nightmare began, tears appeared. Real tears, not anger, not frustration, sadness. I never wanted this. I let out a quiet breath. Neither did I. Silence returned. Heavy, painful, permanent. Then Claire whispered something that broke my heart all over again. "I did love you, past tense, did not do, did, those two words hit harder than every photograph. Harder than every lie, harder than every betrayal, because they confirmed what I'd feared most. The woman who once loved me was gone. Maybe she disappeared years ago, maybe months ago. Maybe slowly over time, but she was gone, and no amount of love could bring her back. A tear slipped down Claire's face, then another. I don't know when things changed. I believed her. Strangely enough, because sometimes people don't notice when love begins fading. It happens gradually. One disappointment, one missed conversation, one emotional distance at a time. Until one day you wake up and realize you're standing beside a stranger. The tragedy wasn't that Claire stopped loving me. The tragedy was that she never told me. Instead, she lied. Instead, she built a second life. Instead, she gave pieces of herself to someone else while I was still fighting for us. That's what hurt, not the loss, the deception. I looked down at the papers. Then back at her. Why didn't you just leave? Claire closed her eyes. For several seconds, she couldn't answer. When she finally did, her voice cracked. Because I was afraid. Afraid. Such a small word. Such enormous damage. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of starting over. Afraid of hurting me. And because of that fear, she hurt me more than honesty ever could have. Another silence. Then Claire picked up the pen. The same way she'd picked up a pen 15 years earlier to sign our marriage certificate. Back then, it was the beginning of a life together. Now it was the end. She signed every page, slowly, carefully. When she finished, she placed the pen down, and just like that, 15 years became a stack of papers. No courtroom drama. No screaming, no grand speeches, just signatures, silence and heartbreak. Claire stood, I stood too. For a moment we simply looked at each other. Two people who once meant everything to one another. Two people who now had nowhere left to go. Then something unexpected happened. Claire stepped forward and hugged me. One last time, I should have pulled away. I didn't, because despite everything, a part of me would always love the woman she used to be. We stood there for several seconds, neither speaking, neither moving, just saying goodbye, the hardest goodbye of our lives. When she finally stepped back, her face was wet with tears. So this is it? I nodded. Yeah. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something else, then thought better of it. Instead, she picked up her bag, walked toward the door, and stopped. For one final moment, without turning around, she whispered, "I'm sorry." Then she left. The door closed softly behind her. And she was gone, just like that. Gone. I stood there staring at the empty doorway, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of everything we had lost. For a long time, I didn't move. The house felt enormous, too quiet, too empty, yet something else was there too, something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace, because the waiting was over. The lies were over, the uncertainty was over, the worst had already happened, and somehow, I survived it. Months passed, then a year. Life slowly rebuilt itself, not all at once, one day at a time. I focused on my company, my friends, my family, my health. I learned something important during that year. Healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering without breaking apart. One autumn evening, I sat alone on my back porch watching the sunset. The sky glowed orange and gold, the same colors I'd seen at wildflower farms, but this time they didn't hurt. This time they were simply beautiful. I thought about Claire, not with anger, not with hatred, just acceptance. Some people enter your life for a chapter, others stay for the whole story. And sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing the difference. The woman I married no longer existed. Maybe she hadn't existed for a long time, but the memories were real. The love was real. And despite how it ended, I was grateful for the years when it was genuine, because bitterness would only keep me trapped in the past, and I was finally ready to move forward. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because I finally understood something. Being betrayed didn't destroy me. Losing Claire didn't destroy me. The end of my marriage didn't destroy me. What would have destroyed me was refusing to let go. And for the first time in a very long time, I let go. The wind moved softly through the trees. The sky darkened, And somewhere ahead, beyond all the heartbreak, all the tears, and all the pain, a new life was waiting. The end, red.